Hey there guys, I hope you have all had a good weekend. Now, I have watched Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz back a couple times now, and I noticed a few things, a few flaws with Anthony Joshua. There were several things. His jab was very weak, he wasn't firing it out like he normally does, and he was way too open, he was getting caught with shots he didn't see coming. That is why the power was too much for him. He's taken way bigger shots off of bigger punches. Vladimir Klitschko comes to mind and Alexander Povetkin. He took those shots with not ease, but I mean, he took the shot and fired back. But against Andy Ruiz, he just couldn't take anything. His punch resistance was terrible, and that's because he was just getting hit with shots he didn't see coming, behind the gloves and high on the head, which seems to be his weakness because he seems to get caught with shots like that a lot, and they seem to wobble him. His feet go to concrete, and he can't move away, he doesn't hold on very well. One thing I noticed also is he was grabbing Andy Ruiz around the head, around the neck, when he wanted to hold on, when this is stupid because Andy Ruiz is an inside fighter, so his arms are still free. You have to tie your opponent up, grab hold of his arms underneath his armpits, lift his arms up, then he cannot go to work. He needed to do that, but he didn't. So Andy Ruiz was still able to get punches away when Anthony Joshua was holding on to him, and they were to the body, which was zapping the energy of Anthony Joshua, especially where he's the bigger man also. Anthony Joshua could not work when he had hold of Andy Ruiz, whereas Andy Ruiz can because he has shorter arms and he can wing those shots in. That is why Anthony Joshua was starting to tire more and more, because Andy Ruiz was landing those body shots, especially when they were holding. Another thing from Anthony Joshua, he wasn't throwing combinations. After the third round when he dropped Ruiz, after that I didn't see him put together any more than one punch at a time, which was unusual for Anthony Joshua. He was very inactive after that stage. He seemed to be just trying to survive in there, and he wasn't doing a very good job of that either. I mean, he wasn't afraid of Ruiz, and maybe that was the problem. He wasn't afraid of Ruiz until he got hit in the third round. Then all of a sudden, Ruiz was a danger to him. And I think you kind of need to be afraid of your opponent. Vladimir Klitschko, he respected him. Maybe he wasn't afraid, but he respected him. If he was going in there with Deontay Wilder, he would have respected him a lot more. And I think when you take a punch from a fighter and then that gets your respect, it's already too late. And that is what happened against Andy Ruiz. Now, all of this points to one thing, inexperience. He is still learning. It was his 23rd fight. So he's learning on the job. He is a champion who still has to try and learn, but he is facing higher opposition. Plus, one thing I'm not too happy about is Anthony Joshua is very inactive. For a fighter at his stage of his career, I know he is a world champion, a unified world champion, and he is facing high level opponents, but still, he is not fighting often enough. 2 times a year is not enough for him to sharpen his tools and stay active in the boxing ring. He needs to be fighting 3 or 4 times a year. Normally, at this stage of a fighter's career, they are fighting for building blocks. They are trying to get better and try and raise their game to a higher level. Anthony Joshua has jumped straight in at the deep end, and he couldn't swim in this fight against Andy Ruiz. It was just too much. And I know people look at Andy Ruiz and say it's embarrassing that he lost to him, but Andy Ruiz is a very good fighter, and he done all that he had to do to beat Anthony Joshua. So I don't want to take anything away from him. He knew how to beat Anthony Joshua. Now, there are some rumours about Anthony Joshua possibly having concussion and things like that, but I'm not going to make excuses for him. The signs do kind of point to that, I guess, because he was gaunt in his face, he was kind of losing track of what he was saying before the fights, and he didn't really seem that interested, especially in the fight. Plus, to be honest, he looked physically weak. He was a lot weaker than Ruiz. Ruiz was getting the better in the clinches, when really, realistically, it should be Anthony Joshua. He is a much bigger, much stronger man, so he should be pulling Ruiz around, not the other way around. But it wasn't like that. Ruiz was beating him up on the inside when they got into the clinch. Now that is down to Anthony Joshua not holding properly, not grabbing hold, but he didn't really seem to know what to do. He was saying funny things to Rob McCracken. I've never heard him talk like that before. I've never seen him really that rattled, and he didn't seem interested at all, which kind of points to concussion. But again, I'm not going to make excuses for him, because the better man won on the night, and all the excuses in the world will not change that. Andy Ruiz turned up, Anthony Joshua did not. Now, Anthony Joshua hasn't really been improving too much with his boxing. He has been knocking opponents over and getting the win, but his boxing hasn't improved all that much since the Vladimir Klitschko fight, which it needs to be. When he gets to this level, he needs to be improving. As I said, maybe that's down to him being in at the deep end, fighting higher level opponents at this stage of his career, and perhaps his power is just getting him out of jail. So he hasn't had to improve his boxing ability all that much over the years because his power has always got him out of jail. Now, a few flaws that I saw that I noticed was he wasn't adjusting his feet after throwing, which meant he was always open to counters, he was always static, and that is not what you want against a fast opponent like Andy Ruiz. Timing will always beat speed, and Anthony Joshua's timing was not in sync at all. Plus, what he was doing is trying to box Andy Ruiz at range, which didn't work for him. He should have changed his tactics, and his trainer should have known that also, Rob McCracken. They should have changed things up after the first round. They should have stayed close to Andy Ruiz. That is the way they could have beat him. Hold his gloves up, keep himself in range, and throw short shots and get a lot of power into those shots. Then he can start walking Andy Ruiz back. You cannot allow a fighter like Andy Ruiz to walk you down, because what he was doing is just walking Anthony Joshua down all night. If Anthony Joshua stayed close to him, what that does is take away a huge part of Andy Ruiz's game, which is counter-punching. And what he can do then is catch and shoot. So as soon as Andy Ruiz touches his gloves against Anthony Joshua's, when Anthony Joshua blocks it, Anthony Joshua can throw his shot straight back and know that Andy Ruiz will not be guarding himself at that stage. Anthony Joshua has the speed and explosiveness to do that. Although perhaps he didn't that night, he didn't look himself at all. To be honest, Rob McCracken should have known that Andy Ruiz is a very good inside fighter, and they should have worked on that in training. But they obviously didn't, because when they got close, Anthony Joshua did not know what to do. At my gym, what we do is we have a tractor tire. Both put one foot in, one foot out. And then you cannot go back. You have to block shots. It sharpens your reflexes, and it just gets you used to taking shots on the gloves. And improves timing and positioning also. And just gets you used to fighting on the inside, which Anthony Joshua should have known he was going to have to do against Andy Ruiz. Or at least his trainer should have. But they obviously didn't work on that at all. Also, he does invite pressure when he gets hurt because it's so obvious when he is. And he doesn't defend himself very well. He has a very lazy right hand. He draws it back instead of snapping back, and that means he is open to the counter. And that is what Andy Ruiz caught him with all night. Caught him high on the head. Whereas Anthony Joshua needs to be taking those kind of shots on the chin. He cannot take him up high because he can't see them coming. He needs to bring his glove up slightly more. He has that glove too low. That is why he's open to these shots. And that is why he doesn't see them coming. Because he is too busy guarding his chin that he gets caught with higher shots. That is what Andy Ruiz done all night. That is where Anthony Joshua became exposed and he unravelled. So all in all, Anthony Joshua really needs to tighten up his training and maybe change a few things up. Something is not working. And in some ways, maybe this is what he needed in order to know that. Perhaps he needed this just to realise he's not where he needs to be in his boxing career. He needs to learn and sharpen his boxing abilities, not just think he's going to get in there and knock his opponent out, because there is more to boxing than that. So Anthony Joshua has a lot to learn. Guys, if you're an Anthony Joshua fan, don't be so glum. This happens in boxing. We've seen it so many times before. He'll come back, he'll be better, he'll beat Andy Ruiz and win his belts back, and soon we'll put all of this behind us. And if there are any haters out there who are hating on Anthony Joshua and loving this, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. What have you achieved compared to Anthony Joshua? Remember, he has still achieved a hell of a lot. Former unified heavyweight champion. But anyway guys, please like this video, subscribe for more content and leave a comment below if you have any thoughts on this subject. Thank you guys.